That's, I know everybody here that's coaching got into coaching because they love swimming. And it's one of the highlights of my week or my day when I have to fight my wife for the swim morning time. But when I get my little 3,000 yards in, there's nothing that makes me feel better the entire week. And you've been all over the world. Where's the cool, and like, for me, I just love, I didn't, all the swimming I did when I was younger just prepared me for a life of joy in swimming. Like, I really love swimming in warm blue water. That's like my whole thing. Going to Hawaii is awesome. Where's the coolest place you've ever swum?
The coolest place I've ever swum. Man, there's been a lot. Like the most exotic,
yeah,
it would be, I did an open water swim in Curacao,
yeah, nice.
In the Dutch Antilles in the Caribbean, and that was beautiful. But now it's a little bit different, and being a little bit older, I appreciate history a bit more. So when I find myself in like historical pools, it's kind of like, it's evocative of the time which that pool was there for. Like last year when I went to Moscow for the first time and swam in their 1980 Olympic pool, and obviously that brought a lot into my mind as I was kind of looking around and experiencing that. Or when I went to Beijing, was actually in the water cube, and then I was, obviously I thought of Michael, and so it's very different, but it's been great. I mean, just every pool has a little bit of its character. It's almost, and as much as I love the mirror pools, because they're all consistent, and it's great from a competitive standpoint, there's no permanent fixture from it that remains behind. Love you, Mira.
Was there anything that changed, again, in that 12-year gap, in the area of training or competitive swimming in 12 years that wasn't part of the elite swimming scene when you were working out prior to the Sydney Olympics? What was it about your training that you go, wow, we never used to do that?
It's hard to say. I'm not sure how much has changed, because really between now and then I have a different coach. And I've been on decks with many other coaches now and then, and just as now as then, there are a lot of coaches doing the same thing, so I switched saddles, so to speak, by switching coaches. And I think every high-level coach, elite coach, that their personality really shines through in how they design their training for their swimmers. And so I'm not sure if there's necessarily advances so much as I know what I needed 13 years ago and what I need now. 13 years ago, Mike Bottom is, just a man of charisma, and he really nailed how to get a swimmer who didn't necessarily like swimming but loved to compete, how to get them fired up and how to get them to train for that competitive moment. And that's what it all revolves around. It revolved around motivation. And now, I don't need that. Now, I don't need to be motivated to train. If anything, I enjoy training more, and I almost, instead of there being a zeal for competition, there's a hint of anxiety. So it's almost more comforting to be in practice than to be at the meets now.
Interesting.
And the way Dave Durden does things in the pool is, the guy's an engineer. The way he breaks down the swims into component parts and allows us to train those parts and stress certain energy systems, whether it be a hypoxic level or a technique level or maybe it's just legs, but he finds a way to do it so that through the stress, we don't fall apart. So that through the stress, we don't become 200 swimmers. We don't become milers, I can't even remember if there ever was a time that I was given a set where it's 10 times this. It'll be 2 times of something really complicated that fills up the entire whiteboard. And everything comes in the form of a 25 or a 50 or a 12 and a half or even a 15, 5, 10 meters. So it's all very nuanced and it's all very specific. And it allows, I think, a sprinter to focus on that particular detail for that particular moment before moving on to the next thing.
Can you read this upside down? Because I think you were just taking my next question.
Right. No, oops.
My next question was going to be if you could make a super bionic coach, what parts Dave Durden, what parts Mike Bottom would you take? But like you said, Mike is Mr. Charisma, and Dave is more scientific. Is there anything else that you're looking for that you really click with the coach? What really makes you click with the coach?
What really makes me click with a coach? Well, of late, I've had the privilege of working with a lot of great coaches. Right after London, I went to go visit my family, and they live outside of Charlotte. So I was working with David Marsh, and incredible coach. Or even at the Olympics, I was working with Greg Troy, of all people, who's traditionally more a distance-oriented guy, but the guy's got an incredible intensity that makes you want to perform for him. Or even, to go beyond the shores a bit, last spring I was in Marseille with Romy. Romy, who he went to school at Auburn, and now he coaches a lot of the French elites. And I learned a ton there, Gibson in Britain. So, how to create a bionic coach. Really, that would be me, I guess, because I'm getting to meet all these great coaches, and they're, from what I've always gathered, they're very generous in wanting to share their knowledge and how they like to do things and why they like to do things. And so if I can soak that in, then I get to be the amalgamation.
Right.
Hopefully as a swimmer.
Yeah. Perfect. So you are able to, you're one of the fortunate people who have swum for a lot of really awesome coaches, and you're able to take the best of what they have and use that in your own training to a certain extent. Yeah. Back in your first Olympics, you had arguably the best sprinter, in addition to yourself, to train against in Gary Hall Jr. And now you have kind of a similar situation with Nathan Adrian. And so my question is, I'm sure they're both very different, but do you have a favorite?
Well, I've known Gary a long time, and when I first walked on deck and met him, I think it was the spring of 2000, and it was kind of this guy walking out of a myth, because he had such a story. He was this rebel. He came from this huge family background, both swimming wise and but there was also a guy who was he was pretty angry. Life had delivered him something, several things that challenged him. And I'm not talking about the pool necessarily, but he loved his grandfather more than anyone, taken away from him. Then the diabetes thing, and then even to be thrown under the bus with the pot thing when just grinding him up, and he came back from that and won gold medals. That is, that guy has the story, and what he everybody sees him, when they remember him, they remember him behind the blocks when he's got his Apollo Creed shorts on, or punch in the air. But when you meet the guy in person, he's very thoughtful and kind of introverted almost. I mean, he loves to spin a good yarn, no doubt. But Gary's a thinking man. And I just saw him a few weeks ago, and he's like married, he's got 2 kids, well behaved. And, it's just like, for me, it's been just wonderful to see how he's developed into the man he is now. And, that I wish I could remember more about the water, but maybe I don't necessarily need to when it comes to Gary, because he was a rare talent. But his adversity came in life, and that's the kind of Olympic champion that I think of him as. Nathan's an incredibly potent training partner, incredibly strong, incredibly fast, incredibly competitive. He certainly is awe-inspiring to train with. But he's a pretty private person, and as far as I know, there's been no challenges in life that call to me that he has stepped up to.
Cool. One more question here, and I'm going to open it up to the audience. Now, you auctioned off your gold medal for tsunami relief, and to me, this is. I'm sure you have the admiration of every person in this audience. I can't imagine. I still have my Far Western trophy from when I was 13. And I couldn't imagine if I won a gold medal. But obviously that really affected you. And can you tell us a little bit about that process of auctioning off your medal and what you were thinking about?
Well, those were dark days. And, the medal had become a symbol in a lot of ways for my strife and my struggle. But it was also a symbol of my victory. At the time, I really, really wanted to be doing my own thing. I needed to be away from the sport, but I was yet I was so proud of what I could do. Like, I felt incredible, hubris, not proud in a good way, but certainly an excess of it, like almost an entitlement. But that Christmas, when the tsunami hit, and even from that very far digital distance, and we have like our culture, I think with TV and the internet, we can see atrocity, terrible things, and the proximity to the data, but the distance from the actuality kind of numbs our sensation of it. Just like seeing violence in a movie, it's kind of numb to us. But if we were to see real violence right before our eyes, it would be a different story. And so despite that distance, my imagination just took off with, this element that I felt such supremacy over, because I was the fastest swimmer. It rose up and just wiped the life of, over 100,000 people. And I know that if I had been there, I would have been wiped out too. So I wasn't known for being necessarily a helping guy or doing any kind of like outreach or nonprofit or what's the word I'm looking for? Humanitarian.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be that in that moment, and I figured the one thing I had that could possibly make a difference was my medal. So I put it out there.
Amazing.